Hey friends, today on Gardening with Creekside, we are going to continue with the series Ask Jenny. This is where you can submit your gardening questions in the comments below. And if I really think that this would be beneficial to a lot of people, then we will do a whole video on answering your question, so that because if one person has that question, then odds are there are a lot of people. So if you have a gardening question, put it in the comments below, and then we may choose that one to do a video on. Today, what we are going to talk about is landscaping and planning for a slope behind me. So, without further ado, let's get going. On Facebook, Linda submitted this question. She said, "Love the idea of Ask Jenny segment. My question is for a hillside ground cover the no fuss way. I need to plant heavily to keep my weeds at bay. Jenny, any suggestions?" And then, like I thought would happen, Diane underneath said, "I love this question, had the same slope question, but for shade." So that is what we are going to focus on today, is how do you plant and design a slope or a hillside so that you do not have to worry about wash and it will still be beautiful and attractive in your garden. So we're going to focus on two areas today that here at Creekside, because if you've been around us, I always say there is nothing flat at Creekside. Everything is on a slope or a hill. Obviously behind me here, we have our beautiful cottage garden. And I'm like, "Jenny, it's, end of December, it's not so beautiful." No, it's not right now. It has some interest, but it is not, of course, in all of its glory. And then we're gonna head over to the nursery because we have a larger area, very still much a slope that is planted, and so I want to show you that so you can get some ideas as well. So first of all, when you are looking at a slope, you're going to approach it really just like you do any other kind of flower bed. You need to make sure that your sun, your sun conditions, whether is it Linda that has sun maybe, or Diane that has shade. So know your sun conditions. Remember, full sun is considered 6 hours or more. Shade is considered 4 hours or less. If you're in that 4 to 6 hour range of sunshine, then that is considered like part sun, part shade. Both of my flower beds are full sun, but we're going to talk about shade gardens as well and give you some ideas on some plants for that. So know your sun conditions, and then you're going to want to amend your soil right whenever you plant these plants the way you typically do. So if you've got some compost you want to top dress with, of course we always recommend using your biotone starter fertilizer when you're planting. And then in my cottage garden style gardening that we do here, I'm going to use annuals, I'm going to use perennials, and I am going to use shrubs. We're going to give you examples of all of those today. Here in the cottage garden at the house, they are predominantly perennials. Perennials, of course, come back for 2 or more years, and then I do supplement with some annuals for some nice big pops of color and to add in some interest. When you're thinking about a slope, obviously, we've got to consider that on a slope, one end is low and one end is high. And we're trying to take up as maximum amount of space as we possibly can with plants so that we don't have wash within the bed. That is what was happening to us here at this area. That is why we really kind of terrace this whole hill. So it really starts up where the chicken coop is. So we had the chicken coop, then we terraced it. We have Hydrangea Hill, where we just have it filled with hydrangeas. We terraced again, we have our garden boxes, and we come down again, and then the final slope is the cottage garden. When you're picking your plants, because of being on a slope, you don't have to think as much about a height difference. Typically when we're looking at a flat garden space, we want our really short plants in the front and then our taller plants in the back. Here at the cottage garden, because it is on a nice slope, I can have plants that reach the same maximum height, but because they're on that slope, the ones in the back are going to be taller than the ones in the front. So you can kind of keep that in mind. So even, of course, you can put your shorter things in the front if you want to. I have some beautiful banana cream 2 Shasta daisies here in the front of the bed. And then in the back of the bed, I have on each corner, I have a lemon meringue baptisia that gets, a good height to it, about in that 3-foot mark. So just think of, yes, you can still do short to tall from front to back, but even if they are all relatively the same size, because you're on a slope, you're going to have a height difference just because of the elevation. We want to mix colors and textures, right? We want to think of plants that probably go wider than tall, but not necessarily. Of course, baptisia is more upright, but we do have things in here that take up a lot of footprint. My daylilies. Daylilies are an amazing perennial to put on a slope in a sunny garden, because they will spread, like get bigger pretty quickly, right, from year to year. Not an invasive kind of thing, but they just get nice and big, and they hold the soil. Because when we're looking at a slope, the main goal is to prevent us as a gardener having to walk up in that flower bed and weed a lot, because it is on a slope and it can be quite difficult and sometimes quite slippery to get into that slope depending on how steep it is. The more plants that we put in the garden, especially your perennials and your shrubs that are there for years and years, then the better off we are going to be. So, like I said, in this bed, I have got daylilies, I have got Shasta daisies, I've got the baptisia, I have got Nephophia, red hot pokers, love those. And then I supplement in this garden with my annuals, especially I love using petunias by the steps. So each season I will take, each year I will take petunias and line those steps. The past year I did jazzberry and it was gorgeous because when you have those plants, the more plants you put into the garden, the more roots you have, so the less wash. Even in the wintertime, when you don't see a lot of top growth in this flower bed, there are massive root systems running throughout this garden. Here in North Carolina, we typically have very wet winters, and we can have heavy downfall of rain, which can cause wash, of course, on slopes. This bed we have had for about 4 to 5 years here, and only the very first season when my plants were still young did I have some wash. Since then, zero. We just got 4 inches of rain about like the other week. I mean, heavy rainfall. Not one little rut, not one wash happened in this garden because of those extensive root systems. So my tip is have fun planting, think about your different heights, and then plant heavily, because especially when you're using your perennials and your shrubs, those are, quote, permanent in the flower bed, and those root systems are very extensive. Water can run over, but it's not going to rut out the garden because you've got these great roots holding all of your soil in. And then also, this has been very, very key for us, especially when you have a new flower bed, and then you have to do this every, year or 18 months, is you want to use a really great mulch, nice and thick. Because we are in the South, a lot of times people will like to use the large pine bark nuggets as a mulch. I particularly do not like that because we are on a slope and that can wash and move really, really well. Plus it doesn't break down as easily to give, turn into compost for your flower beds. So whether you have kids, you have that slope, you have an 85-pound 2-year-old German Shepherd like I do, when they run through it or you walk on it or big rains come, that pine bark will slide down your slope. We like to use that hardwood mulch, like a double hammered hardwood mulch would be really good because it just holds on and it does not wash. So when you're using your mulch, you can go to your local garden center if they supply mulch, or like a bulk landscape supply company where you can get, you can purchase your mulch. Tell them that you're on a slope and you need this mulch to stay put. They will recommend to you which is the best mulch for that application. So what we're going to do is we are going to head over to the garden center because I can't wait to show you this large full sun flower bed that is most definitely on a slope. Here we are at the retail garden center. This flower bed behind me is definitely on a steep slope. This is the bank that is the back of the garden, and then obviously behind us we have lots of woods back there. To my right this way is the pergola and of course all of that shopping area. We developed this bed a couple of years ago. We actually filmed a video for Laura of Garden Answer. She was asking some folks to do some special guest appearances, and so we did this area. So it's affectionately called here at the garden center Laura's Bed. So that's how the name of this area is, Laura's Bed. When we filmed the video for Laura, there was absolutely no plants in here whatsoever. And I think, as you can see from the footage when we were shooting, it was nothing but raw red North Carolina red clay. There was zero organic matter in that soil, very much on a slope. It was very steep and still is. And so what we did was just filled it full of various shrubs. We planted this bed in two phases, shall we? We did the shrubs in the fall, and then the following spring, then we came back and added in lots of perennials. So in this bed, in the back, we have got some Jazz Hands Loropetalum. Nice, beautiful, evergreen shrubs. They're going to be my bigger ones. We did move them to the back to give some height in here. We have got hydrangeas. I've got 3 different panicle hydrangeas through here. I've got Perfecto Mundo azaleas in here as well. Another great evergreen shrub, gives me spring flowers, right? So then we kind of worked those in there. And then we did also down here at the bottom, we did some Scentlandia, because that is at the bottom of the hill. A lot of times it will be your wetter area because that's where the water sheds. So with the Scentlandia, it loves those wet conditions. I tend to, like I said, go more towards a cottage look, right? So I have various colors and shapes and textures that are just kind of, there's not a formality to it. You can absolutely plant a hill in a formal manner if you want to. It's just going to be the structure and how you lay your plants out. So if you wanted to use boxwoods to outline the bed, you absolutely could do that. Boxwoods across the bottom would be beautiful, or at the top. It really doesn't matter. You could do the sides. You could enclose the whole thing. Really, you're only limited by your imagination. Like I said, then the next spring, we came back here with tons of Proven Winners perennials. So I've got Summerific hibiscus in here. I have got gorgeous Monarda that absolutely thrives in this flower bed. They have been very happy and spread and got nice and big, gorgeous flowers. I have got daylilies in here. I have a little bit of everything, Baptisia, you name it. I can't emphasize this enough. When you are planting a slope, you want to put plants in there, whether they are annuals, perennials, or shrubs, or all the above. You're going to plant heavily. Obviously, right, you can do it all at one time if you want to, or you can do it like we did here, and you can do it in phases. As soon as you begin to put plants in and you get some nice thick mulch in, you are going to be amazed and so excited with how your slope is transforming right before your very eyes. Now, both of the gardens here, of course, are going to be in those sun conditions. We talked about that Diane has a shade garden. So what are some ideas of plants that you could use in your shade garden? So you could use boxwoods, a great idea, because like sprinter boxwoods can do sun or shade. There you go. Nice evergreen structure on that. Florida Sunshine. I love Florida Sunshine. That is a great shrub that is going to be an evergreen, nice, bright chartreuse color. So it looks beautiful in a shade garden, and it has that evergreen color to it. You can do more shade-loving azaleas. Stunning. You could do rhododendrons, right? And all of those are going to be evergreen. Obviously, this is going to be dependent on your zones. So if you, of course, I know southern plants because I'm in North Carolina. If you're in a colder climate, kind of take those ideas. Maybe you use some Weigelia, maybe use some lilacs, and those may be more sun conditions. But think about, what are some shade-loving shrubs and incorporate them into the garden. I would use a lot of autumn ferns or ferns in general. Autumn ferns particularly because they are evergreen. So even in the wintertime for us, I still have structure from my autumn ferns. Hellebores, Lenten roses, my gosh, that would be gorgeous on a slope, right? Tuck those in, they give you beautiful late winter flowers. Hostas would be gorgeous, right? And they spread as far as like their mounds just get bigger and bigger. So every year you just get bigger and bigger hostas. Those would be beautiful. Lamian would be a nice kind of ground cover. The pink Chablis from Proven Winners, it does sun or shade. We sell it as an annual, but for us it is a perennial. I have it in my shade garden as a ground cover. And it would be a beautiful addition because it's a nice silver and green together. So you could dot that in even in the wintertime, you would have structure there. Let's see, any of those different eucharas or eucharellas, either one of those would be great in a shade garden. So you're just going to take those plants that you typically would use if your garden was flat, and you're just going to incorporate them up on a hill. When you're planting on a slope, it really, don't overthink it, y'all, right? So you're gonna have a slope. You want the back end of your plant not to be buried by the hill, not to be buried underneath the soil on the slope. Your front end, obviously your roots are gonna be a little bit more exposed. Just bring in some soil or some compost and shore up around the front of that. And then when you bring your mulch, you will have it all nice and spread out. Just make sure that you don't bury the crown of the plant, whether it's an annual, a perennial, or a shrub, with too much mulch and too much soil. But it really is not very different planting on a slope as it is planting on a level or semi-level level spot in your garden, right? So just have fun. It is late December. It is cold. It is a very crisp, chilly day here in North Carolina, but that doesn't mean that gardening stops, right? Maybe you are going to be covered in tons of snow right now and for the rest of the foreseeable future. Or maybe you're like me and you're in a warmer zone and you can still get out and garden, but maybe it's just cold and you just want to stay snuggled in. This is the perfect time to plan your garden. Start dreaming, start looking, go ahead and subscribe to some gardening magazines. My favorite magazines to subscribe to are Garden Gate and Fine Gardening. Those are two great resources that tell you about plants that are coming out on the market. They do lots of beautiful photos of other people's gardens so that you can look at that. They will have, articles on natives and beneficial insects. It's very informative. So those are the two magazines that I get that I love. Pinterest can be a black hole, especially just depending on what your topic is. But in gardening, absolutely go on Pinterest and start looking at ideas. So if you have a shade area or a sun area, you can type in shade garden on slope, right? Or you could just put in shade garden and all these pictures are going to come up. Just keep in mind that depending on where that image comes from, you may not be able to find the exact same plants, but that's the inspiration. Look at the colors, the textures, how they have the plants laid out, and then go to your local garden center or start researching what plants will grow well in your hardiness zone. So dream and plan and plant, and then depending on where you are, your hardiness zone, start early, right? When you the seasons start to change from winter into spring, then that's when you want to be out there planting those plants. Especially for us in the South, we're more concerned about the heat of the summer than the cold of the winter, as far as I want to get those plants in the ground and established before the heat of the summer hits. So we can absolutely, maybe we take January, February off. Beginning early March is a great time to start putting those plants in the ground. I hope this has been fun. I hope this has been informative. I hope it's been helpful. If you have some common gardening questions or a problem in your garden that you want some help with, just put them in the comments below and we will take a look at them. As always, thanks so much for gardening with Creekside. Y'all have a great day. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends. first of all, when you are looking at a slope, you're going to approach it really just like you do any other kind of flower bed. You need to make sure that your sun, you know your sun conditions, whether is it Linda that has sun maybe, or Diane that has shade. So know your sun conditions. Remember, full sun is considered 6 hours or more. Shade is considered 4 hours or less. Have fun planting, think about your different heights, and then plant heavily, because especially when you're using your perennials and your shrubs, those are, quote, permanent in the flower bed, and those root systems are very extensive. Water can run over, but it's not going to rut out the garden because you've got these great roots holding all of your soil in. And then also, this has been very, very key for us, especially when you have a new flower bed, and then you have to do this every year or 18 months, is you want to use a really great mulch, nice and thick.